Chapter 14 in the book takes a look at the speaker's voice. The way that you use your voice can convey a lot of meaning in your speech. And so it's important to think about some particular vocal qualities as you practice your speech. You want to control the sound as much as possible. Now, we all have certain qualities about our voice that we have very little control over. And so, some of our voice qualities are what they are, and this is certainly not a theater class or anything like that. But there are some minor things that we can do. As you notice, if you were listening, I have been adjusting my pitch as well as my volume and my rate, just as I'm talking right now. We want to pay attention to the articulation and pronunciation of words, and understand that there are different dialects and regionalisms that come into play. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but that is certainly a factor. So, the importance of your voice, try not to bring attention to itself. It can generate enthusiasm for the topic. If I just had to sit here and listen to this monotone voice talk to me, wow, I would probably doze off. And your voice can also establish significance of the main points. You can use your voice for emphasis. These things we're talking about: pitch, volume, rate, articulation, pronunciation. Of course, I'm going to use some jargon here. This is all called paralinguistic cues. These are things that you can do with your voice that helps to support the words you're actually using. So in chapter 13, we looked at word choice. In this chapter, we're going to talk about how we can use our voice to think about those word choices and to emphasize or de-emphasize certain things. Controlling the sound of your speech. You need to think about these things. Does my voice help me convey the meaning of my speech clearly? Am I emphasizing what I want to emphasize? Am I using a rate that will allow the audience to understand what I'm saying? If I were in my audience, would I want to listen to me for an extended period of time? Now, a lot of students say no. Okay. But I'm telling you, you can do it. So we've spent all this time this semester looking at developing a good speech and the content of the speech. Right? We've got some good structure. We've got good support. We've organized it well. We've thought about the audience the whole way. This is the last thing we're going to think about. Don't let all your hard work developing that speech kind of fall flat because you didn't think about the delivery. And does my voice enhance or detract from the impression I make? Now, I'm going to tell you, no one's going and hitting and doing a TED Talk at the end of the semester. These delivery aspects of a speech take a lot of practice and repetition. The more you do something, the better you get at it. That's true of anything in life. So let's take a look at these 5 different areas here, and we'll in a little bit more detail. Pitch. When I say the word pitch, I mean the highness or the lowness of your voice. So if I go and talk up here like this, I've raised my pitch. I'm talking higher, or I can talk lower. We tend to vary our pitch when we talk. It's not something we consciously think about. It's just something we do. We become more animated when we talk. We pull in some physical aspects also, which we're going to talk about in the next chapter, to go along with the pitch that we have. An audience can judge a speaker who varies his or her pitch to be much more lively and animated. Again, if I just talked in a very monotone voice and never varied my pitch at all, it would be a very boring speech to listen to. So we do want to try to vary our pitch. We do tend to have a habitual pitch. This is the level which we speak most often. Again, we don't think about it much. What we do want to try to do as we're practicing our speech is go for an optimal pitch. Think about areas where you want to vary the pitch of your speech for emphasis, to emphasize something. Okay, so we've got pitch. Another thing we can look at is volume. Some of us tend to talk very loud. My kids are always like, "Mom, you're so loud." Some people talk very soft. A lot of times people will feel inhibited when they're standing in front of an audience, and their volume will decrease. So we want to make sure, there's lots of things to consider: the space, the size of the room, different things, how far away you are, do you have a microphone, do you not have a microphone. We want to aim to speak with enough force that everyone in the audience is able to hear us comfortably, but we don't want to scream and overwhelm them. So when you're speaking at your lowest, even the audience members in the very last row should still be able to hear you. For those, if you're taking this class virtually, we're sitting at home recording these. If we're taking this blended, we're coming into a classroom and doing this. And Anybody who's listening to this from a face-to-face class, we're also in that classroom. So we always need to think about the setting. Adapt the volume to the situation. Also, you want to regulate your volume so that you're not talking at the same volume all the time. Again, we can increase the volume at particular points to help emphasize certain words. As I said, this is an important point and I want you to pay attention. Notice I increased my volume a little there. I also varied my pitch and I did something with my rate. And that's the next area. So we've got pitch, we've got volume, we also have rate. The rate is the speed at which you speak. We all have different rates that we naturally speak at. I know for me, I tend to speak very quickly. And so oftentimes I have to say to myself in my head, slow down, slow down. Even when I'm recording these lectures, I'm like, oh, I got to cover everything. Oh my goodness, how many minutes am I at? And I find that I want to increase my rate. And then I say to myself, wait a minute, slow down. If we speak too quickly, it can communicate a desire to get the speech over in record time. One of the biggest mistakes I see students make is that they keep too much information in their speech. Here's a content issue. They keep too much, they're trying to cover too much. So then they talk so fast to try to get through everything that it's hard for us to follow. Don't fall into that trap. If you find yourself there, you got to get rid of some information. Also, if we speak too slowly, it kind of communicates tentativeness, a lack of confidence, and it may bore the audience. Well, I was thinking that maybe you would want to learn something about maybe, I don't know, ladybugs. Okay. That does not convey a real confident message. So if we can vary our rate, that will help to keep the audience engaged. If you notice, I've said vary your pitch, vary your volume, vary your rate. All of these things lead to what I call conversational style. You're just trying to have a conversation with us in the audience. Pause. You know, we do not like to have moments of silence. We feel like we need to fill it with something. But there are some really great times that you can use a pause, and a pause can be used for emphasis. When you walk up to deliver your speech, before even starting, take a second or two and stand and just look at your audience. That's called pause, and that can help have a greater impact. If you pose a rhetorical question, have you ever really thought about why we're here? And then just pause. It's okay to have some silence. When you're about to make an important point, it's a great time to just pause for a minute. It makes the audience think, oh, okay, something's coming. When transitioning from one part of the speech to another, it's good to use a brief pause and after delivering your final words, and then just stand there for a minute. It lets us know you came to an end. Okay, these verbal fillers. Oh, we don't like silence. And so we often fill that silence with what we call verbal fillers. Okay, like, all these things are used to take up the space. Also, keep in mind that our brains work faster than our lips work. And so oftentimes we will use a verbal filler when our brain is trying to catch up or when we're trying to remember something. So rather than just taking a moment and saying nothing, we'll fill that space with something. This is why practicing the speech can really help to reduce the amount of verbal fillers that you use. It should just be a human condition. When we're not sure what we're going to say, we want to fill the space with something, and we're standing in front of an audience, so that means I have to say something, so I'm just going to start saying, So practicing can help. One of the most common things that I hear when students do self-assessments is, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I said so many times. And so it's a process. The more that you do something, again, the better you get at it. Let's keep moving along here. Articulation and pronunciation, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. Articulation is the way that words are stated and the way sounds go together. I talk to my son is 17, and he slurs his words together, and I look at him sometimes and think, I have no idea what you just said. He does not articulate well. So we want to make sure that we are trying to articulate those sounds, and those sound blends are not all going together. Pronunciation is the way a word is pronounced. If you are not sure of how a word is pronounced, get yourself on Google and do a search about how something is pronounced, and then keep saying that word over and over and over to make sure you're pronouncing it correctly. So, the speaker's voice, a very important aspect. Maximizing your vocal effectiveness is going to be important. Have you identified your vocal strengths and build on them? We all have different vocal qualities. I had a student a few years ago who had this very deep baritone voice. It was so soothing just to listen to him. Think about James Earl Jones, right? He has this powerful voice. Okay? He was born with that. There's not too much. I can't make my voice sound like his, but I can identify my own personal vocal strengths and I can build on them. Vary your pitch. You have practice. Practice and practice so that other people hear you. Practice in front of somebody. Practice by recording yourself and listening to it or asking someone else to listen to it. Identify where in your speech to raise and lower your volume, where to pause, where to stress an important point. Those are all things that you should be practicing. And doing your best to eliminate verbal fillers, and as well as thinking about how you articulate and how you pronounce words and trying to avoid pronunciation errors. If you do all of these things, you will be a much more engaged speaker and you will be well on the way to becoming a more effective speaker and learning how the vocal qualities can truly make or break a speech.